once Hawaii's royal capital, is now a crematorium. "We pick up remains and they fall apart," said Maui County Police Chief John Pelletier on Saturday, 4 days after a massive wildfire tore downhill through dry brush and grass and engulfed the island's western edge. Close to 100 deaths have been confirmed, making the lahaina wildfires the deadliest in the U.S. in more than a century. But just 3% of lahaina's charred ruins have been searched so far, stoking fears that the death toll will continue its sharp climb. "None of us really know the size of it yet," Chief Pelletier warned, growing visibly emotional. Dozens of survivors shared their stories of escape and loss with the BBC, helping to piece together a more complete picture of the tragedy that unfolded on Tuesday, when fires moving at a mile per minute consumed the town. One thing seemed to unite their accounts: residents say they had no official warning before they fled for their lives, raising painful questions about the effectiveness of the emergency response and whether more people could have been saved. On Tuesday morning, Lahaina residents woke up to find their power was out. Phones hadn't charged, alarm clocks stayed quiet, and air conditioners shut down. For Les Munn, a 42-year-old resident, the outage announced itself in a dropped call to the country's east coast. He had woken up at 4 a.m. that day to accommodate the 6-hour time difference. Mid-conversation, the connection was cut. But the outage alone wasn't especially concerning, Munn said. "I just thought it was going to be another blackout," he said, noting the trade winds that frequently hammer the coast. By 9:55 a.m., officials had declared the lahaina brush fire 100% contained. Residents were given no indication it would flare up again. Richard Tennyson, a homeless lahaina resident, woke up to the rushing winds. Standing up near the door of a pharmacy where he had set up for the night, he watched as his bedding was carried by the wind into the harbor. "The weather was building," said Lynn Robison, who lived in the heart of the historic town. By 8 a.m. she got her first whiff of smoke, an odor that would build throughout the day. But at that point concerns were muted. Hawaii was used to storms. By around 3 p.m., things began to turn. Les Munn went outside to take out the trash. He chatted with his neighbors about the strange wind, the gusts growing so fast and so loud they could barely hear each other speak. They speculated, incorrectly, that the dust and ash in the air was due to construction. The group separated, peeling off into their separate units in the apartment block. Suddenly, the building's smoke alarms began ringing. Residents emptied out of their apartments. Outside, embers had begun igniting the brush around them. At that point everybody started to panic, Munn said. Munn ran back inside and tried to grab his wallet, but the heat and smoke forced him to flee with nothing but the clothes on his back. Everything went black. Choking on smoke, he fled to the only thing he could see, the blue lights of a police car, and dove into its back seat. Munn hadn't heard a siren alerting him to the fire, and he hadn't received official notice to evacuate. Of the more than 24 lahaina evacuees who spoke to the BBC, no one did. On Maui, the second largest island in the Hawaiian archipelago, there are 80 outdoor sirens tested monthly, intended to warn residents of tsunamis and other natural disasters. But those early warning sirens had failed to sound, officials have confirmed, a failure now under investigation by Hawaii's Attorney General. Some residents told other media outlets they received alerts to their mobile phones early on Tuesday, but the blackout across Maui's west may have limited their reach. And in the absence of a wide-scale warning, residents described a frantic rush to escape a fire that seemed to appear from nowhere. Some people, both officials and residents, have said the blaze may simply have moved too quickly for any formal response. "It was a very fast-moving fire, it was a low-to-the-ground fire," said Lori Moore Merrill of the U.S. Fire Administration on Saturday from Maui. "It outpaced anything that firefighters could have done in the early hours. The firefighters need to be commended for their actions," she added. The governor has also noted most resources on Tuesday had been focused on tackling other wildfires on the island. The smoke was so thick and so dark residents could not see more than a few feet in front of them, nothing but bright red embers blowing through the air, burning their skin and everything around them. More than 2,200 buildings were razed, the houses, shops and churches that lined Lahaina's streets reduced to molten metal and ash.